May 1986, Aberdeen, Washington. 19-year-old Kurt Cobain is convicted for graffiti. On the walls, he left provocative slogans and other sharp lines. For the police, it was simple vandalism. For Kurt, it was a way of pushing back against a small-town life where he never belonged. He spent a short time in holding, pays a fine, and gets probation. What really stays is his mugshot from that arrest. A young face staring straight at the camera, unimpressed, unafraid, refusing to play along. A few years later, that same defiance would become music, distorted guitars, fragile honesty, cutting humor. The kid who distrusted authority would soon be leading Nirvana. The incident matters not because of the crime, but because it shows a pattern. Kurt kept testing limits, even when it cost him. Call it mischief or a small protest. Either way, it pointed toward a voice that gave outsiders a sense of recognition. The charge was minor, but the signal was Major Cobain would go on to challenge power, stand with misfits, and speak his truth without polish or apology. September 17th, 1983, Constitution Day. After 15 years in America, Arnold Schwarzenegger raises his right hand and becomes a U.S. citizen. In 1968, he arrived from Austria with a gym bag, a thick accent, and an invitation from bodybuilding legend Joe Weider. The plans sounded ridiculous. Win everything, learn the business, break into movies. Discipline made it practical. Stubborn optimism made it inevitable. When the oath was done, he celebrated the only way he knew, boldly. Head to toe in stars and stripes, flag over his shoulder, he spent the day walking around wrapped in it, too proud to take it off. This photo is the thesis of his life. Reinvention on purpose. Immigrant to champion, champion to Hollywood icon, icon to the governor's office in California. People called the accent a barrier. He turned it into a brand. They said the body would limit him. It opened every door. He didn't just live the American dream. He made it unmistakable. 1958, a reporter leans in with the question Pablo Picasso hates most. What does it mean? Instead of a lecture, he reaches for a small revolver, loaded with blanks, and the room cracks with sound. According to multiple accounts, Picasso sometimes used this stunt on critics and admirers who tried to pin his paintings to a single answer. Startling, not harmful, it was theater with a point. The artist doesn't own interpretation, the viewer does. The bang breaks the habit of dissecting art like a specimen and drags attention back to sensation, color, rhythm, shock, joy. It fits the man who lived as boldly as he painted, allergic to cages, to tidy footnotes, to being explained. The story endures because it's a thesis disguised as a prank. No bullet, just a boundary. Don't pin the butterfly, let it fly. With one empty shot, he turned Q&A into performance art and reminded everyone that meaning is something you feel first and explain maybe later. San Francisco, 1973, Kazar Stadium. At the end of Stairway to Heaven, the crew unlatches two cages of white doves behind the amps. One bird loops low over the crowd, tastes the night, then boomerangs back. Robert Plant lifts his hand on instinct. The dove lands untrained, unplanned for 5 surreal seconds. Photographer Neil Preston is already framed up and clicks. Stage protocol says, touch nothing, move nothing. The roadies guard every cable. But sometimes the picture finds you. What makes this frame endure isn't manufactured symbolism. It's accident embraced, swagger melting into stillness, the golden god holding a scrap of peace that chose not to leave. Years later, Preston called it a happy accident. Look long enough, and it reads like a parable. Showmanship with humility, noise interrupted by grace. A rock star who grew up around animals meeting a moment he understands, calm, respect, and a quiet breath in the middle of thunder. March 1964, Queens, New York. Don Hogan-Charles, then a staff photographer at the New York Times, makes a stark photograph of Malcolm X at his window, gripping an M1 carbine. He had just broken with the Nation of Islam after accusing its leader, Elijah Muhammad, of fathering children with teenage secretaries. Threats followed fast. The frame looks fierce, but it isn't aggression, it's vigilance. A father guarding his home, a man refusing to silence a truth that could cost him everything. That same season, he was mentoring a young Cassius Clay. Days after the split, Clay chose loyalty to Elijah Muhammad and became Muhammad Ali. The friendship shattered, an ache Ali later called one of his deepest regrets. Malcolm accelerated. He founded Muslim Mosque Incorporated and the Organization of Afro-American Unity, traveled to Mecca in Africa, and widened his message from American segregation to a global human rights vision. The danger widened too. In February 1965, his house was firebombed. 1 week later, on February 21st, he was tragically gunned down at the Audubon Ballroom. The window image endures because it shows the hinge of his life. Clarity under threat, defiance without theatrics, a promise to protect his family and his voice by any means necessary. Late 1980s, New York. A young Philip Seymour Hoffman stands casually in the middle of a dorm filled with the beautiful chaos of student life, open drawers, piles of clothes, scattered books, dishes stacked on desks, and papers covering nearly every surface. Dressed in a simple red sweater and jeans, he looks like any other college student of the time, far removed from the fame and acclaim that would later define his career. At New York University's Tisch School of the Arts, Hoffman immersed himself in drama, sharpening his skills under dedicated teachers and surrounded by peers who were also chasing big dreams. The messy room in this photo captures a moment of normality, a reminder that even future legends lived through the same disarray of youth. Hoffman would graduate in 1989 and gradually rise to become one of the most respected actors of his generation, winning an Academy Award in 2005 for Capote. This snapshot, however, preserves him at the beginning, just another student quietly shaping a legacy. This rare photograph captures Albert Einstein in a tender moment with his stepdaughter Margot Einstein during the 1939 World's Fair in New York. The event was significant not only as a global showcase of progress and innovation, but also as a stage for cultural identity in the tense pre-war years. The Jewish pavilion stood as a symbol of resilience and heritage during a time when anti-Semitism was on the rise in Europe, making Einstein's presence especially meaningful. Margot, the daughter of Einstein's second wife, Elsa Lowenthal, often accompanied him at public gatherings and shared in his social and intellectual circles. Their close relationship is reflected in this candid shot, which shows the famously reserved physicist in a playful and human light. Beyond his towering scientific contributions, moments like this remind us that Einstein was also a stepfather, a family man, and an individual navigating personal bonds in an extraordinary era. 1968. Before tuxedos and red carpets, there's a kitchen table and a kid named George Clooney. His world is steeped in media. His father, Nick, is a journalist and TV host. His aunt, Rosemary, a chart-topping singer. The snapshot feels ordinary, but it's training. Listen first, charm second. For years, he'll chase bit parts and failed pilots, learning patience, until ER explodes in 1994 and the charisma everyone at home already knew walks onto millions of screens. The through line starts here: warmth, wit, and an ensemble instinct shaped by family. He'll become a leading man, director, and activist, but the first audience was this room. The late 60s were rewriting America's style and stories. He was watching closely, collecting rhythm for later. Strip away tuxes and headlines, and you find a 7-year-old practicing the craft that never shows in credits, being present. 1999. A young animator, Seth MacFarlane, sits in a small studio, ink on his hands, a blunt cartoon face on the wall behind him. In weeks, his experiment will premiere on Fox as Family Guy. Born from a micro-budget pilot, he largely animated himself. The promise is simple and strange. A suburban family delivered at warp speed, cutaway gags, musical stings, and cultural references that detonate like pop rocks. He won't just create and produce. He'll voice the core trio Peter, Stewie, and Brian, switching registers like a one-man troupe. The sketch in the background is the receipt. Everything starts as lines and coffee rings. Then the roller coaster cult following, cancellation after season 3, DVD sales, and Adult Swim reruns, so loud the network brings it back, stronger. What began as a scribble becomes a cornerstone of primetime and rewrites the playbook for adult animation. Look closely at the drawing. You can almost hear the first cutaway loading. New York City, 1998. Before the meat dress and stadium anthems, there's a 12-year-old named Stefani Germanotta, spending hours at a piano bench. She started at 4, hands just too small for octaves, practicing scales before homework and writing ballads that would later feel like armor. By her early teens, she was testing songs at open mics, in coffee-scented rooms buzzing with nerves. The picture was simple, the ambition wasn't. The girl who studies theory, sings school musicals, and rewrites the same chorus until it stings will, within a decade, step onto the world stage as Lady Gaga. Costume, character, and concept art built on years of relentless practice. At 17, she'll earn early admission to New York University Tisch School of the Arts, proof that the foundation was real. But in 1998, it's just a kid with a practice log and a stubborn idea. Music is not a hobby. The duality endures, discipline first, drama second. Under the sequins, a metronome. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to give it a like, share it with your friends, and drop a comment below with your thoughts or ideas for the next episode. And if you haven't already, make sure to hit that subscribe button to stay tuned for more.